Well, good morning to our day 18. I did write day 18. Yeah, I believe it's day 18. Well, I'll check it later. Anyway, good morning to you all. I hope you're still feeling good with the program. I'm really curious where you're all at. So later today I will post a question in the group to just give me some indication of where you still are stuck, or on things you want to hear more of, or because it helps me to know where to move on to. And sometimes I do read a text from one of you, and that also gives immediate input for me to elaborate on something. So sharing that with me or with the group just helps this process. And today, just going to switch off my phone. Today I want to talk about love. And there are two different forms of love. Love with a capital L and love with a small l. And what's that? Underscore? What it is? Anyway. So understanding this difference between these two versions of love, because I need to put words to it, hopefully helps you to understand what it is we most often are looking for. So just at the core, we are love, and that's with the capital L. So when I talk about our essence, connecting to your essence, the I am, that's a frequency, in its purest form, is a frequency of love with a capital L. So all our life, we humans seem to be seeking for love. And ultimately, we're actually looking for this love with a capital L. And you experience that state more or less often, depending on where you are in your journey of awareness. But that's a state you cannot seek. That's a state you already are. So there is no seeking, actually. It's already there. It's just covered up with your identified person self who is seeking for love, who's seeking actually for this love with a capital L. And this frequency of love, which you are already, is an absolute form of unconditional love. And unconditional exactly as it's meant. So there's no condition towards life, towards yourself, your identified self, towards your friends, your relationships, to the world, nothing. There's no condition. It's all good. From that perspective, everything is just all good. It's all love. Even when that person is in pain, you still from that perspective, you approach that person with a form of unconditional love. That means that whatever you need, I'm in full service for you. So it's pure service to others, to support your process in what you need. And I'm there not to gain anything for myself or for someone else. I'm not even gaining something for you. It's just pure being there and being at service for others. That's the purest condition of love we as humans, I believe, can experience. And in that state, there is no doing, there is no wanting, there is no neediness, there is no judgment, there is no resentment, there's no jealousy, there's no comparison, and there's no separation. And you are that already. We all are that already. Whatever journey we had, whatever life we had, whatever experience we had, we are that. It's just covered up deeply. Or it's not covered up, but we just don't relate to it. We don't connect to it. So the other form of love, the normal form of love that we humans talk about when we say, I love you, is actually the form where we are looking for love for ourselves. So we're actually we're on this journey to this love with a capital L. And while we're on this journey, we are unconsciously aware that the love is incomplete for ourselves. So by connecting with people, by getting into relationships with people, by having children, by being related to family, we're constantly mirrored back in all those versions of relationships that the love we're seeking for is not there yet. We're not connected to that love yet. And in this phase of seeking for love with a capital L, we go through the phase of love for ourselves to heal that heart which is incomplete, which is not fulfilled with love. So the identified person I talked about before is the one who's incomplete of love for self. And if you're incomplete of love for self, you are still in this state of the identified self. And even if it's from that perspective, if you would say, I completely love myself, then who's the myself you're referring to? If that still is the identified self, that who everyone would define as you, the roles you play in life, the person you are, etc., then if you refer to that, I love myself completely, then it's still referring to the identified self. And it's not the love with the capital L, the pure essence that you are. Because I cannot say I love my pure essence or I love myself in my pure essence, because there's no self in that. There's no self in the sense that there is a identity in that state. It's completely identity free. It's just an essence, it's a being. And it's a perfect journey and a necessary journey to become aware of that lack of self-love. Because you need that love for yourself, you need that completeness within in order to let go of all the attachment to your identified self. And that's what we've been talking about, all those lack beliefs, the critical voice, the inner critical voice, that what makes you feel uncomfortable with yourself or insecure about yourself. That's in that journey of going towards self-love. And it of course really helps to complete that love for the identified self. Because if you're completely okay with who you are as a person, as an identity, then it's easy to let go of the attachments. And then you don't project your lack of self-love, you don't project that to others anymore. And then you just automatically go into the state of pure unconditional love. So if we are in relationships with others, we actually, let me rephrase this. If we say, I love you to someone, then what you're actually saying, you make me feel my love, the love for myself. Because that's actually what's happening when you love someone from this identified state. When you feel that connection from the heart with the other person, you are, and you're doing that in an unaware state, or even in an aware state, but still in the state of the identified self. Then at that moment you're connecting with the hearts, and you can sense, or that other person makes you feel complete in that moment. That your self-love in that moment is complete. It's fulfilled, so there is pure love felt at that moment. And if it's really pure when you're in a relationship with someone at certain moments, then there's pure presence, probably. Even if it's for a short time. And in this pure presence, you are in the state of love, with a capital L again. But being in relationship with people and seeking for this love, for this confirmation of yourself, the love for yourself, easily gets us in states of projection things to others. Because we feel this incompleteness within, and we want the other person to fill that gap. And especially when you feel safe with someone, because you're in a defined relationship with someone, like a romantic relationship, then this safety opens up your heart and also opens up the gaps which are there, the gaps of love for yourself. The old pains you still have and the lack beliefs you still have. I'm talking about those gaps. That way you're completely okay with yourself. And because this field feels secure, you are exploring actually with the other person to make that love complete again. But doing it from an unaware state creates projection. Because you expect the other person to make you feel that love for yourself. But no one can do that for you. It's the same way when we say, you make me happy. No one can make you happy. What the phrase should be is, you can make me feel my happiness for myself. And if you're completely aware that the other person is just mirroring you, what's unresolved yet within you, it's just pure mirror, and you can be in a state together where you can just explore this and be open and vulnerable, then this relationship is very healing for this path of self-love. So, and as we are all pure love in essence, and that means that we unconditionally love everyone, because that is in pure essence who we are, then love can never disappear for someone. So even the phrase from "I don't love you anymore" is also a wrong state. It's a wrong phrase, because you cannot not love someone anymore. You can alter the state of the relationship, and you go from a romantic love towards a friendship love or a more distant love. But it's still love, because we all love each other. And that sounds perhaps very, very fluffy and sweet and unrealistic, but that's because we identify the word love with all the romance we have around that, with all the beautiful movies we have seen, with all the stories we have heard, with all the... That's why we like all love stories, because it gives us this sense of like completeness at the end of the movie, when everything comes together and there's pure happiness and love. And the most tricky one when it comes to love is love towards children. Most parents are convinced they purely love their children. That's pure love, which is true in itself. But in their behavior, because they're afraid to lose them, because they're afraid their children will not be a happy person, or are not happy, or not become happy, because that fear is underneath. And so there's a strong attachment with the child. This love loses its unconditional form. It gets conditional. Because if I lose my child, I'm in so much pain, I might not even survive. That's what I think most parents would say. Well, for once, I don't think that many parents have killed themselves after they lost a child. I don't know the statistics, but I do know. I do have friends who lost, and family members who lost a child. And they're still alive. So this almost desperate feeling of attachment with the child that gives a ground for condition. Like, you have to be my child, you have to be in relationship with me, you have to stay in relationship with me for me to feel good, for me to feel love for myself. And it's a very subtle form of projection, it's a very subtle form of condition. With most people, sometimes it's not so subtle at all, and they're completely projecting all their unhappiness on their child. Because they haven't succeeded in life, their child must succeed in life. Or because they're not happy in life, they wish everything for their child to be happy, which is in itself absolutely beautiful. But just be honest, it's not so pure. There's something in there for you to gain, to fill up that gap. And just by being honest about that you're filling up a gap, is already enough to soothe into it and to become aware of where the conditions are. So if you go to the other version of being in a relationship from pure unconditional state of love, means that you would be okay with anything the other person does, if that is out of pure exploration for that person himself or herself. Whatever the exploration is. But you're just there to support the other person that you love so much in his or her journey. And that's quite a difficult, challenging one in relationships. Because fears of being abandoned, or fears of jealousy, or fears of not being seen, or especially when you talk about romantic relationships, come to the surface. And then you feel hurt by the other person. Because it turned out that you're not so completely full with love yourself, for yourself. And it might be an ultimate goal or an unreachable goal to reach, to being pure unconditional forms. But again, becoming aware of having a relationship, a romantic relationship with someone as unconditional as possible, or being aware of where the conditions come in, releases a lot on the relationship, on the pressure of the relationship. Because then it's more like exploring together. What is it that you need? What is it that you need to explore? What is it that you are still insecure about? What is it that you want to experience? Whatever it is. And that same question, of course, is for yourself. And this morning, I briefly read through an article, and it said the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. And this article was about leaving. The person had a divorce after 7 years, and she found out that she actually, after 1 year of grief and feeling resentment and unhappiness, she was now in the state of being indifferent towards her ex. Well, that to me, going into a state of indifference, is covering up a lot of pain underneath. How can you be indifferent to a person? And how can you be indifferent to a person you've been once so close with? Whatever that person has done to you, there was a phase first in most normal, healthy relationships. I'm not talking about the abuse ones. But there was a state where you were in love, where that other person made you feel the love for yourself, where there was this wish to be happy together and to share this happiness together. So how can you then change into a state of indifference? I would almost say that hate is a more pure form, because that's at least being honest. That there's a lot of resentment and a lot of pain still there within you about being incomplete, about the love for yourself. And you project that as hate towards the others, towards the other person. So all different states of love, or feelings of love, are feelings of incompleteness, of love for yourself. And that's again the full acceptance of your identified self. Which again is I'll almost say a precondition to let go of the attachment. And I've talked about caring for others in one of the sessions. And there is often the conditional love, great part of. So there's often a condition in this care for others. And you have the feeling that you really do it out of love for other people. But the condition is that it makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel like I've done something for someone else, so I feel good about myself. I can love myself a little bit more. And some people do it without even feeling love for themselves because it's too painful. So they think, if I just love other persons and care for them, I'm a good person, and I don't. Well, they often don't even go within themselves because it's just too painful. And they're covering it up with this, feeling this love, feeling this essence of love by taking care of others. So they kind of get tastes of it. But that's not an unconditional service to others. That's actually a service to self. And most of us in this world are completely in the state of service to self, to make ourselves feel better in our lives, to make ourselves feel happy. And we use others in between. We kind of use others to I've lost the sentence. So that service to self, we use others to feel complete about ourselves. And not use in a purposeful way, like I'm really misusing you. But we do use them. We need them to fulfill that service to self, to fulfill that service to self-love. Or to feel service to self is actually the service to feel love for yourself. So I don't mean this selfish, the pure selfish way of service to self, like the ego way, like I make sure that my life is good and I don't care about other people's life. As long as it's good for me, it's perfect. Now, I mean the more subtle version of service to self, that you think you and are convinced that you're completely there for others, but you're still doing it actually to feel more complete yourself. And pure service to others, pure being at service to others, there's no self in there. It's completely being at service, the Christ version of being at service. Just to give up everything you can think of. You don't even give it up. It's just not there. It's completely irrelevant. You can completely die for mankind. So mankind can learn their lesson well, that's at least how the Bible rephrased it. But I know a few people who are completely unselfish in service to others. They've completely gone through this journey and they're completely there for others. There's no need for status, there's no need for money, there's no need for approval, there's no need for confirmation, it's just they're pure there. They're still humans, they still live a normal life, but from a different state, from this unconditional state. So if you look at the selfish version of self-love, then that's the egoistic version, as humans call that. Then you really are able to take very good care of yourself. And then it's really at the cost of others. So there's always a win-lose. Like I have to win something for myself, but I want you to lose as well. That's pure selfishness. And they can still believe that they're really doing very well for others. But they always do something for another person. So it is, from their perspective, it's good for the other person. From their definition, what's good for the other person. And they do that because they feel good about themselves. And the other person who receives a kind of service from the selfishness perspective immediately feels that it's not pure. It feels the condition in it. And if this is a difficult subject for you, it helps perhaps to start with where you felt that the other person who said he loved you so much or she loved you so much is still putting conditions in it. Just to get a sense of where this feeling of condition comes in. And then you can look at yourself. Where do I put conditions in my love for the other person? Which is, again, love for yourself. So this requires, and that's almost a necessity for everything in this process. It always requires pure honesty. And if you feel you love another person so much, you would do anything for that other person, why can't you then be completely okay with what the other person does? Or why do you feel very restricted or very, very sad and even like your life is depending on it when that person is choosing something which makes you feel unhappy? How pure is that love then? And the example of love in relationships and holding on to love in relationships from this perspective of condition is the metaphor I really like is when you hold sand in your hands. And that sand resembles the relationship you have with the other person, the quality of the relationship. You want to hold on to that relationship. You want to hold on to that love for the other person, and you want that person to love you. If you leave that sand just in your open hand, and you open your hand and just sand just stays there. It doesn't move much. But if you squeeze the sand in your hand, you immediately lose the sand. It just goes through your fingers and falls off your hand. Because you hold on to something which is pure condition from your part to keep something there, which you cannot force to stay there. You cannot force it. You try to force it with your conditions you put on it. But on the long run, it doesn't work. You either really stress yourself out, or you lose the other person because he feels so caught up in the grip of your hand. It feels like choking because you hold on to that relationship. You don't want to let that other person go, and it almost feels like you're choking. You cannot breathe anymore because the other person doesn't let you breathe anymore. And still, the person who's holding on to this so tightly really does that with the feeling that but I love you so much. But what it actually says is, I don't love myself enough. And I hope that you fulfill that for me. So don't leave me, because then there's nothing left of love for myself. Which is, of course, extremely painful to acknowledge. So the unconditional state of love, the love with the capital L eventually, when you're completely in this pure essence of being, is where life, from that state where life gets so easy and flowing and fun and relaxed and joyful, because everything that happens is okay. I don't need to fulfill anything here. I'm okay with everything. It's great if you're there. It's even much more fun and much more enjoyable, and it's more passionate, or whatever that it is what you share with the other person. So life gets richer by sharing your life with others, especially with particularly others like loved ones, like romantic loved ones, or your children or your family members. So you don't have to become a soulist when you are in a state of unconditional love. On the contrary, relationships are much more easy because there's no expectation. It's all good. And that's really how it's felt. It really feels all good. When you make a mistake, and when I see you make a mistake, in the sense how it's mostly defined by you, then it's all good. I'm there for you. I'm not going to correct you and prevent you from making a mistake. It's all good. Explore. And the neediness for success in life is also a form of confirming that you are completely okay with yourself, or you're not okay with yourself, but by being successful, you feel that you are really great. So then you start hunting success, because that gives you that good feeling about yourself. And success, of course, is nice, but when success is a confirmation of yourself, there's again a condition. When success is there because it's to the benefit of all, everyone has a win-win in this success. Every person or situation that's that's involved with this result of success there's a win-win for everyone, then it's more unconditional. So I hope this gives more clarity on the differences in what we call love, the different qualities, the different essences, and how it relates to our attachment to our identified self. And of course, it relates to the heart again. The heart cannot feel resentment, etc. Well, I think I'm going to talk about the heart another time, because that feels like a whole different topic again. Okay, I'm going to leave you here, and I'll see you tomorrow again at 9, if I remember well. Okay, have a good day. Bye.